Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Astarties Analysis. I'm your host, the OT Astartes. Now, it's been a while since we've done a review of Hetty Feather, isn't it? What, it's been 5 weeks? Bloody hell. Well, we took a diversion in order to cover some Doctor Who stuff because it's coming up to the 60th, well, it's been the 60th anniversary, so I thought I'd help commemorate that by reviewing some annuals and Radio Times and some schedules from that time period. So please do check those out, as they will be in the playlist. Now, I honestly can't remember where we were in the show because I remember last episode. Oh yeah, last episode was the one where Monica died, isn't it? Sounds like an episode of Friends. The one where Monica dies. But anywho, God, I hate Friends. Anywho, we are on episode 7 now. So, the loss of Monica is still being felt throughout the Foundling Hospital and the dormitories. Hetty reflects on the fact that a Foundling only has one life. We see shots of Sheila, Matthias and Hetty all looking out of the windows and staring on into the night. Matron Bottomly announces that Lady Asquith's butler will be paying a visit to the hospital and has set the girls a series of tasks. The girl with the best attitude will be given a testimonial, which is basically a job offer and a place as a butler or a maid in Lady Asquith's house. Hetty thinks that this is boring, but Harriet sees this as an opportunity, and she says that everyone is going to go into service eventually. Meanwhile, Hetty fantasises about getting married and travelling around the world when she nearly bumps into Sheila. So outside, our favourite master manipulator Blanche says that she doesn't want to see the butler, so she takes it that she is excused and decides to go off on her own because she can. Sheila is still upset about Monica, and Hetty looks out the window and Colonel Brigwell arrives with a female doctor called Webster. But we're going to call her Dr. Whammon. Why? Because she's a strong, independent Whammon. And she looks like Phoebe Waller-Bridge. In the kitchen, Ida talks about the butler being the finest in all of London. Well, he might be the finest butler, but Stanley is the fastest milkman in London. So anywho, sorry about that. Sheila says that Hetty's more excited about Dr. Whammon, and Ida says that her testimonial is important due to the fact that it could land her a job rather than in the workhouse. Sheila and Hetty then leave, and she's reminded that this is very important by Ida. The boys meet the Dr. Whammon, and she's brought some animals and artefacts from other parts of the world that she has travelled in. Meanwhile, the girls meet the butler, and Hetty is bored to death. Dr. Whammon talks about travelling around and seeing the world, and that Whammons don't get the opportunities that... Whammons don't get the opportunities that Menzies do. We was Whammon Kings. We was stunning and brave Whammon Kings at Vatsies. The butler, meanwhile, because this sequence cuts between the boys and the girls, the butler instructs the girls of how to set a tea tray for the afternoon tea. Meanwhile, Dr. Whammon talks about an expedition that she went on. Matron asks Cranbourne about his family situation, and he says that there is no news about his cousin, nor is his uncle getting any better anytime soon. Matron says that he deserves to be an earl and asks him for supper. Matron interrupts mid-story as it is a disgusting one. Dr. Whammon gets out a snake that she just found, and the boys are amazed by it. They are also told what to do if they see a poisonous snake. God, it's like moments like this we need Steve Baxual. He'll tell you how to avoid a poisonous snake. Vince shoves Matthias to the front, and he says that Matthias is scared as he reminds Matthias of running away in season 1. Matthias lashes out at Vince and everyone is told to sit down. The girls' trays are getting inspected by the butler, Harriet, Sheila and Elizabeth's are well made, but Hetty's is missing a fork. Yeah, I never eat cake without a fork. Yeah, I kind of agree with the butler. So Nurse Winterson places a pot on the best looking tea tray and it goes to Sheila's. The tea is going to be taken to Dr. Whammon and Hetty offers to take it. One stunning and brave Whammon meets another stunning and brave Whammon. Hetty does this because she wants to prove herself that she is capable. Meanwhile, the boys are having another story time from Dr. Whammon and Vince asks her whether she's ever killed somebody or not. Before she can answer the question, Hetty comes in with the tea tray and says that she dropped her mug on the way in. Vince goes and steals an artifact which he can trade with Stanley. He drops the artifact out of the window and says that he will pick it up later, and Hetty is escorted out by Matron Bottomly. While in the corridor, she listens into Dr. Whammon's stories. She sneaks in again to watch the slideshow and hides in the trunk. Vincent Judd silently spots her and a smirk is beaming across his face. That's Vince's face, by the way. While the girls are cleaning wine glasses and stare at each other, the butler recounts a story of how one maid scratched 3 glasses when Arthur Conan Doyle allegedly went for dinner. Back to Dr. Whammon's slideshow, the stunning and brave slideshow of Dr. Stunning and Brave Whammon. Hetty peeks out of the trunk. Vince sneaks over to Hetty and he pretends to give her the tarantula, making Hetty scream. Vince then holds up the cloth that was used to be the fake spider and Hetty is escorted out. Walter notices that the snake has escaped and Cranbourne advises that he should call for Matron to help them. But Dr. Whammon insists that the boys will be soldiers and that they should have 2 search parties. Hetty returns to the butler's training course and she tells Harriet what she saw and is told not to distract her. While Winterson is talking to them, Sheila puts some... this will be some stuff where it scratches the wine glass into Harriet's cloth and hides it when she cleans it, when Harriet cleans hers. Harriet notices a scratch on hers and she looks to Hetty. Hetty deliberately drops her glass and insists that she swaps places with Harriet. The boys are searching for the snake. Judd distracts Dr. Whammon while Vince steals a statue, but Matthias sees it and follows him. The butler looks at all the clean glasses and Harriet raises her hand and wishes to speak to Lady Asquith in private. She confesses to scratching the glass and returns to her place. Meanwhile, Vince has the statue and Matthias finds him. He grabs it off him and Vince performs a takedown in which they fight over the artifact. Vince looks to his side and he sees the snake, which makes him scream. Dr. Whammon hears the commotion and she comes in to save the day and picks it up. Dr. Whammon also notices that the artifact in Matthias's hand and Vince calls Matthias a thief. As Dr. Whammon is leaving, Cranbourne apologises on Matthias's behalf. He also says that he will be given extra gardening duty as punishment. And as she leaves, Cranbourne is given a letter that is addressed to him. The end of the maid's course is nigh, and Lady Asquith is about to award the testimonial to somebody. Sheila comes forward and she's asked about what the qualities of a good maid are. When asked about honesty, she pauses. The butler saw her cheating in order to win, and she will not be given the testimonial. He says that Harriet owned up, and she is given a placement serving Lady Asquith when she leaves the Foundling Hospital. Ida talks to Hetty and Sheila and says that they both screwed up their chances of ever getting a job. Hetty says that she wants to tell stories and she doesn't want to be a servant, but Ida says that she has worked hard to get to where she is now. Hetty interrupts and then walks off, and Sheila starts crying, and she says that she doesn't want to end up in a workhouse, and she is also afraid of an accident happening that would get her killed, like Monica. Brigwell arrives to collect Dr. Whammon, and she goes to Matthias as he is gardening. Dr. Whammon tells him that she knew that he didn't steal the artifact. Brigwell then arrives to collect Dr. Whammon, and she goes to Matthias as he is gardening. Dr. Whammon tells him that she knew that he didn't steal the artifact. Then she does a strong Whammon speech saying that the world's changing, yada yada yada, strong Whammon, we need people like you, yada yada yada. And Harriet and Matthias exchange each other's news. Matthias wishes to be an explorer and he wants to bring Harriet with him, but she cuts him off when she asks about serving Lady Asquith. Cranbourne goes to see Matron Bottomly for supper, and he tells her that he had a letter from his cousin Jasper. He was located in Australia, and now he will be the next Earl. Matron gets out, and she's not very happy with it. Her plan didn't work out, and we end with Vince successfully locating the tower where the Foundlings meet, which will be explored in the next episode. Now we move on to episode 8. So we begin with Hetty still fantasising about being a strong Whammon adventurer. And she talks about her being just a foundling girl who will never be who she wants to be. Post-title sequence, Matthias is gardening and he spots a bird. Cranbourne stops him and says that they are not there to admire the view, they are there to garden. Matthias managed to grab a feather that it dropped and he put it in his pocket. Hetty hears the bird and rushes over to see it from the window. The bird flies on to the chimney and Blanche asks Hetty whether she's missing something. She is in possession of Hetty's journal. Blanche says with that the only writing that she'll be doing is a recipe. That sounds like a wrestling promo. That sounds like something that would be said in a WWF wrestling promo. The only writing you'll be doing is a recipe. Ooh yeah. Outside, Vince tells Matthias and his friends that they found their secret tower. Ned confronts him about this, but Cranbourne steps in, saying that the wheelbarrow needs emptying. Vince and Judd volunteer, and when they are gone, Walter says that they've got to stop them, and Gideon snaps a trowel deliberately, and Matthias is sent off to find a new one. While the girls are cleaning the stairs, Hetty tells Harriet that Blanche has found her journals and that she needs to hide them in the tower. She picks now to hide the journals because the water in the bucket needs changing, and she sees this as an opportunity to run off. Vince and Judd start to climb the ladder. Hetty is not far behind and avoids getting spotted by Ida, and she goes to the cupboard where the ladder to the tower is. Vince and Judd get to the tower, closely followed by Hetty. She sees Vince and Judd in the tower, and Vince takes away Hetty's journals. Matthias walks in and says that Cranbourne is looking for them. So Vince and Judd leave, and Hetty tells Matthias that Blanche knows where her journals are. She wonders what to do now that some people know about her journals and where the tower is, and Matthias says that him and his friends will make sure that Vince and Judd won't come back. We'll make sure they don't come back. Ever. By order of the Peaky Blinders. We'll shut them up and we'll make sure they never come back. So, Matthias also asks to deliver a message to Harriet, to which Hetty tauntingly says, "Love, Matthias." So Hetty helps Matthias write out his letter, and the letter's going to say that he wants to see the world with her, and for it to be cryptic, and the feather will be, if she wears the feather, it will be a sign that she likes Matthias back. True love. It won't last, darling. Brigwell arrives and Winterson delivers some letters. Him and Matron talk about books and then they go to an annual review. So they're going to do the yearly financial review. Back to Hetty now. Hetty has finished the love letter to Harriet. So when she goes down, Hetty bumps into Ida and she loses the letter that's meant for Harriet. The Foundlings then go to class and Hetty rushes up to her as she has been gone some time. She says that she has got Matthias's letter and she looks for it in her pocket, but she can't find it. She panics and then rushes off to find it. Hetty goes to where she collided with Ida earlier to get the letter back, but Matron and Colonel Brigwell come down the corridor. She hides from them and Colonel Brigwell picks up the crate with the letter for Harriet. And now in Matron's office, they're about to look at some paperwork when Cranbourne comes in to join them. They decide to move the annual review into the governor's room. So Brigwell gets a head start and Matron is left alone with Cranbourne. This gives Cranbourne an opportunity to offer help with the annual review, but Matron says that Brigwell is capable of conducting it himself. Cranbourne also says that he misses their suppers together that they used to have. But Matron echoes his previous sentiment by saying that there is much work to do, so Cranbourne leaves the room and Matron sorts out the paperwork. She sees Matthias's letter and she opens it and looks flattered. The boys are being led to class. Matthias and Gideon spot Harriet. He notices that she is not wearing the feather that was contained within the letter. Cranbourne ushers them back to class just before they can say anything. And outside, the girls are beating the dust off of the rugs. Blanche beats some dust into Sheila and Elizabeth's direction and says that she was clever enough to know which side to stand on. Hetty beats the carpet, worrying to hell about what Matron Bottomly will do when she sees the letter. Blanche loiters in the background and noses in on Hetty and Harriet's conversation. Colonel Brigwell comes out accompanied by Matron, and Harriet notices that Matron is wearing the feather. Brigwell compliments it and says that it is from a Harris hawk. When they are gone, Blanche says that she knows about the books and she has said nothing. And she also says that she only wants to know what's going on. That night in the girls' dormitories, Harriet says that Hetty was lucky, and Blanche says that she was brilliant. They speculate that Brigwell is in love with Matron Bottomly, and Blanche compliments her wording and points out that she can make Matron do anything that she wants. Harriet discourages Hetty from doing anything, but she writes another letter, supposedly from Colonel Brigwell. Harriet disapproves of this and she looks away from Hetty and Blanche. Hetty's fake letter tells Matron to wear something bright like a spring flower, and she drops it off at Matron Bottomly's quarters. The next day, everybody sees Matron in a bright yellow cardigan. Harriet glares at Hetty, but Hetty and Blanche smile in victory. Matron meets with Brigwell, and Ida asks whether he will be staying for lunch or not. Yeah, I think she's picked up some signals there. I think Ida wants her and Brigwell to be together. Brigwell accepts, and Matron tells her that some of the girls can help with serving the lunches. Brigwell compliments Matron's outfit, and she asks him to call her Gertrude, and in return, he only asks to be called Rupert. In the courtyard, Harriet sees Hetty writing another fake letter. She says that enough is enough, and Blanche agrees with Harriet this time, and says that they'll be in trouble if they carry on. Well, she didn't say that this morning. They were smiling in victory after she did that. What the hell has gone on with Blanche? I mean, did she magically see the light? Did she get a visitation from somebody? Did the ghost of Monica just appear in front of her and say, "You are being very naughty, Blanche"? Ooh. Yeah. Hetty refuses to comply, and Blanche snatches her letter off her to read it. She hands it back to her and saying that it is stupid, and Hetty accuses Blanche of not being smart enough to read. Hetty tells her to read it out loud, but Blanche tells her to read it herself. Blanche is frustrated with her, and she tells her to send it to Matron Bottomly and see what happens. When she's gone, Harriet tells her to focus on sending a letter to Matthias from Harriet and forget about taking down Matron Bottomly and hooking her up with Colonel Brigwell. Harriet is called away, and Hetty continues to write her fake letter that will make Matron Bottomly and Colonel Brigwell an official couple. And when Matron receives the letter, she is in shock, to say the least. In the kitchen, lunch is being prepared. Gideon, Judd and Vince deliver some food. Vince and Judd steal some pork pies behind everybody's back, and Hetty talks to Gideon about Matthias. He says that Matthias feels like a fool after Hetty's mistake, and she says that Harriet still wants to meet up with him in the kitchen after lunch. She tells Harriet this news and takes the cake to Matron and Brigwell. I bet she's really happy now. I bet Zinch is somewhere like saying, "Just as planned." During Matron Bottomly and Brigwell's dinner, he tells her about his regiment experience. When he says that travelling alone can be a lonely experience, Matron offers to join him as a companion and that he has touched her heart with the letters that he has written. Said with exclamation points. Brigwell denies this and he says that he should leave, and Matron is heartbroken by what has just happened. Hetty realises what she's done and runs away, and Matron angrily calls for Nurse Macclesfield. In the kitchen, Hetty tells Harriet that she's done something awful, and just then Macclesfield comes in and conducts a search for writing equipment. Harriet asks her whether her journals are safe, and Hetty confirms that they are up in the tower. Everybody's pockets are searched, and so are the dormitories. Matron rages about where they could be, and vows to find whoever did this. Harriet, Hetty and Sheila are being led to Matron, and Hetty runs off towards the tower. Cranbourne conducts his own search. He seems to be a lot calmer than Nurse Macclesfield. Matthias wants to go and see Harriet, but Gideon says that this is not the time to do so. Vince and Judd also reveal that, hilariously, that they stole some pork pies, and Cranbourne tells them to carry on. I love how Cranbourne's just chill about this situation while everyone else is just frantically running around. Hetty climbs up to the tower to gather the journals, but finds the lock is on the hatch. Blanche tells Matron that it was Hetty who wrote the letters. And when the girls are all gathered in the dormitories, they notice that Hetty has gone missing. Matron drags Harriet out to help search for Hetty. They cross paths with Cranbourne and the boys who are being marched back to their dormitories. Matthias sees Harriet and is moved along by Cranbourne. Macclesfield asks if anybody knows where Hetty is, but she turns up ready to be punished. But she turns up in the girls' dormitories ready to be punished. At the end of the episode, she's taken to the tent and is told that she will never see Harriet again after tomorrow. So for episode 7, I love how it flashed between Dr. Whammon's group, who are having a really great time hearing about what her exploration is like, about how places that she's been to and animals that she's encountered, and meeting all of the animals that she's captured. And the girls are just having a miserable time when they're with the butler. Hetty's having the most miserable time of her life, and I love how Sheila, Elizabeth and Harriet are all very competitive at the time. It even gets to the point where Sheila cheats in order to win. And also the butler, I like how the butler knows what's going on with Sheila. He knows that Sheila's cheated, and she immediately gave it away when she paused when she was asked about honesty. Vince's antics in this episode. I love how he's scared of a snake. Like, he screams when he sees a snake. I mean, let's be honest. I'm scared. I used to be scared of snakes, but I like them as well. You know, it's one of those things that I'm scared of, but I like to see them. Because I spent a lot of time watching Deadly 60 growing up. God, do you remember Deadly 60? God, that was a show, alright. I remember Steve Baxter getting bitten by a real life snake once. Was he? He was in a swamp somewhere, and I recall he got bit. Anywho, yeah, I love Vince's antics where he's scared of a snake and he's still going on about Stanley and that football. Um, Also, this shows a more honest side to Harriet at the end. She turns out to be a bit more honest. She tells Lady Asquith that Sheila cheated, and at the end, Sheila doesn't want to end up like Monica, and she even cries. So that's how, Monica's death is even being felt, even in this episode. That's what I like about this show, that Monica has not been forgotten about. Obviously we hear Sheila crying and saying that she doesn't want to end up like Monica did and have a terrible accident or go into the workhouse. Also, now that Cranbourne's family situation has been resolved, Matron Bottomly has a complete meltdown and she's really hostile towards him. And it's so satisfactory. I bet Hetty wishes that she was there to see Matron Bottomly have an Angron-style meltdown. For those who don't know who Angron is, think of him as the Hulk, but in Warhammer 40k. Blanche, again, using her power over Matron Bottomly to get out of both the visits from Dr. Whammon and the butler. And then Hetty, of course, is hell-bent to get out of the butler's course, and she wants to listen to what Dr. Whammon has to say, and of course now she wants to be an explorer, and she is hell-bent on doing that. And even at the end, we see Vince finally locating the tower where Hetty and her friends hide out in during the night. As for episode 8, I don't know what happened with Blanche. I love how insane Hetty goes during the course of the episode. Like, this is like the Emperor's Children. Like, this is some of the... I love how she descends slowly into insanity, as if to think that she could finally take down Matron Bottomly. Like, I could finally take her down. And I also think that Blanche saw a bit of herself in that moment where Hetty wants to manipulate Matron Bottomly. And let's be honest, it was quite satisfying to see Matron slowly fall in love with Colonel Brigwell. And at the end, she loses it. Oh yeah, another Angron-style meltdown. I love how she's completely triggered. Like, she conducts a military style search and she has everyone quivering in fear. While Cranbourne is chilled out about this, he's like, right, back to your dormitories, gentlemen. And he just lets Vince and Judd go after they stole the pork pies from the kitchen. Like, he's just chilled about that. Oh dear. Anywho. Yeah, and of course this makes Harriet look the sane one. This episode made me like Harriet because she clearly wants to have a good future, and she's working towards that, meaning to not play up and not do anything extremely naughty like manipulate Matron or try and hook Matron Bottomly up with Colonel Brigwell. God. I bet Ida wanted them to be together as well. Like, I bet she picked up that signal. Blanche goes through a change here, so she goes from manipulative to, oh, I want to be friends with you, Hetty. And the entire plot of Hetty hiding her journals and Vince trying to find it as well, and a bit of a confrontation between Hetty and Vince. Even Matthias interferes, and now Hetty's journals are in danger of getting found out by Matron. I love how Hetty taunts Matthias when she writes his letter to Harriet, because like she's a bit cheeky in this episode or in that moment. And if there's one thing you should never do in a relationship, it's to interfere with what's going on. Alright? Just leave the two people to sort their own stuff out, okay? You don't need to interfere. Moral of the story, folks. Matron's also a bit cold toward Cranborne in this episode because of his family situation getting resolved. And this episode sets up what's going to happen for the next season as well. And the ending where Hetty is put in the tench. This is the second time running. How will it change this time? I think Matthias wanted that letter written after the last episode where they exchanged each other's news, but of course Harriet told him that she would now be working for Lady Asquith as a maid, and obviously this dampened Matthias' spirits a bit, so this letter was to be his offer to ask her to travel the world with him. And I love how this just goes into the wrong person's hands, and it just sets up an entire story arc's worth of chaos. So anywho, that just about ends this episode here. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all later. So goodbye, good night, and follow the buzzard.